Welcome to the Codependent Me podcast. I'm Tamala Shaw, a recovering codependent, a codependent life coach, and the co-author of God Turned Mommy's Wine into Water. This podcast was created to increase the awareness of codependency and to give a more holistic look at the journey and healing of codependence. Welcome to Episode 1 of Codependent Me podcast. In this episode, I'd like to talk about how I was diagnosed with codependency. I was in my early 30s, on my third therapist, and very frustrated. I was tired of telling the same story about my failing marriage, diverse childhood, and how I was lost and unhappy in my adulthood. And none of them had any clear answers on how to help me find my peace. But this therapist was different. She would ask me questions and would give me quotes from books and scriptures to read as my homework. Then one day she said, "Do you know what codependency is?" And I said, "No." She said, "Well, I am diagnosing you with codependency and I need you to do your research." Okay, that's no problem, because at this point, we had talked for a little bit and I trusted her. So I left and I went and bought the book Codependent No More. I'm sure you guys are pretty familiar with that if you know a little bit about codependency. And I thought it was interesting. The book said how to stop controlling others and start caring for yourself. So I read the book and went back the following week and definitely realized, codependent for sure. In the book, it defines codependency as a person who has let another person's behavior affect them, or a person who is obsessed with controlling that person's behavior. That this person could be a child, a lover. I was thinking more so of a spouse or in a relationship, when really you can be codependent to your siblings, your friends. Because of the alcoholism that's in my family, I wondered if codependency was a disease. And I've searched, but I haven't found any concrete evidence that it's, any type of chemical imbalance or anything like that I know of. But I do for sure know that it's a learned behavior. I am the child of alcoholics, and there was a certain sense of responsibility that I had as a child that was not normal. After everyone was asleep, I took it upon myself to make sure that the eyes were off on the stove, the doors were locked, that my brother was in bed and, secure. I took on that responsibility to make sure that everything was okay. So I know that was my first level of being codependent, making sure that the family was okay when it should have really been the other way around. So that's kind of where codependency can start. So all of this made me think about all of the people that were around me. So I started assessing those that I would meet or that were my friends. And then I realized that truly I was attracted to people who needed me. So I guess at that time, that was my love language. If you needed me, then I would love to be there for you. And that's just that was the biggest part of my codependency. So I would read more, and then I would find more things about me. And it was just like, wow. So at that moment, codependency was big for me. And I was wanting to find more information. But then I started talking to people about it and saying, I went to this therapist. She told me that I was codependent. And, I really feel like I'm on to something. And people would be like, "What's codependency? Never heard of it." I'm like, "What? What's codependency?" And I would get silent, because even though I was researching it, I realized that people in my circle did not understand codependency. And I felt as though where I was at that moment, if I started to explain what it was, then it would come off as being negative. And I have a thing about negativity or things being looked at in a negative way. So I would just be quiet. I became very silent. And in my community, it's already strange to go to therapy. So now I'm in therapy and now I'm codependent. So I'm like, okay, so now I have to learn how to deal with it myself in order to be able to explain it to other people fully so that they can understand and not think negatively about it. And, who knows if they would have, but that's how I felt at the time. At one point, I'd even said something to someone about being codependent, and they were like, oh, no, girl, you're very independent. I don't know why they would think you're codependent. And I was like, yeah, I got to really do some research to be able to explain this to people, because I know it's a learned behavior, but I know a lot of people that could have that particular behavior and just don't know. I know, even though with me, I felt like I just loved hard. And that wasn't the case, because if I didn't feel good about what was happening and what I was allowing, then that's toxic for me. And so I was not giving anyone my best yes. And that's what you should always do, is give people your best yes. And I never had boundaries. I would always allow people to just do any and everything. As I researched quietly, I kind of went back to my roots, which was Al-Anon. And let me just go ahead and say, as a teenager, I was in Al-Teen. As an adult, I was in Al-Anon and loved it. It helped me a lot. Again, when you find your tribe and you find your people, it really helps. So I went back to my Al-Anon meetings, and that was going very well. So it brought me back to thinking about the whole codependency in the forefront. This sent me to my bestie Google, and it showed me a link for coda.org, which is for Codependents Anonymous. That blew my mind. Of course, knew about Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotic Anonymous. I'm like, wow, there is a program for codependents. They have 12 steps, 12 traditions, prayers, promises. I was like, sign me up. This wonderful program has given me such an education and the skills that I needed to be able to spread the word to people who are struggling like I was. So I'm so grateful for CODA, because it really just changed my life. And so I decided to start a program called Codependent Me, because I knew that healing codependency had to start with me. Healing anything has to start with me, but I needed to realize that I was number one. I had to realize that I matter. So through my journey, I have held meetings, I've attended and facilitated workshops at the CODA conferences. I've spoke on codependency at women's conferences. As I spoke about before, I've co-written a book with my mom, who is fantastic, about her alcoholism and how that pushed me into being codependent. I'm a codependent coach, and I host a Facebook group called Codependent Me. I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to host this wonderful podcast, where I hope that we can spread the knowledge and healing of codependency. And bringing that up, I want you guys to know that this podcast will not be successful without you all, my tribe. I hope that we can use this platform to be heard and acknowledged. I need for you guys to email me what you want to hear. If you want to come on and tell your story, please do so. Just let me know anything that you want to participate in on the podcast. Just email me at codependentme@outlook.com. Have a wonderful day. I can't wait to meet you guys. Bye. I understand that nothing is more valuable than your time, so thank you for listening. Be sure to join our Facebook group, Codependent Me, and check out my website at codependentme.org. Thanks so much. Have a great day.